What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Movie Emporium's Flashback Reviews, where I take movies from the past, break them down, and tell you what I think about them. If you like what you see, of course, hit the subscribe button. Join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at the top to find out what's coming next. Hey, if you like any of these videos, cool, hit that like button, as well as commenting below on any video that you watch, including this one. So, in 1990, September 21st, to be fair, a film released in America called Goodfellas. And Goodfellas became what most consider one of the greatest crime dramas, if not one of the greatest films ever made. You look at the top 10 of a lot of people's film lists, and this is usually up there with like Scarface or Rocky or any of those films, where this film is in its own right one of the most fascinating, one of the most epic, and one of the most disturbing films ever put on screen, for the simple fact of how realistic and how much realism is put into effect in this movie. How the narration in this movie is just so kinetic and just so unnerving and so unsettling. The characters in this movie are some of the best well-written characters ever made. Joe Pesci won an Oscar for this movie, and as we know, one of the biggest crimes in the Academy Award history is putting Dances with Wolves in the Best Picture winner over Goodfellas. This was a year that, of course, had The Godfather Part 3, Awakening, and I can't remember the other film, but Goodfellas should have won this year, and it took till like 2007 or 6 or whatever for Martin Scorsese's film to actually get recognized as a Best Picture. But Goodfellas stands the test of time as one of those films that you can watch infinitely, you can watch forever and never get bored of it, because of how engrossing and amazing Martin Scorsese and Nicholas Pileggi's script is. It's just a mind melding of just pure cinematic joy. And this film is, when you watch it and you sit down, you're just mesmerized by how much care and detail is put into this world. This is based off of Nicholas Pileggi's book that was actually read by Martin Scorsese when he was doing The Color of Money. And I can see why this movie took a little bit longer than it should have to be made, because Scorsese wanted to do Last Temptation of Christ. Because when you're trying to hone down a book into a movie, it can be difficult. We've seen many movies to books or books to movies that have been spectacular failures. It's just the way things work. It doesn't really produce well. Lord of the Rings and like Starship Troopers are, the rule to the exception. And so this film follows Henry Hill, who is played by Ray Liotta in the adult form, as one of these people that is groomed from an early age, growing up within kind of an abusive family, but a mother that loved him very much. And he became kind of a thief, and he would sell stuff out of trucks and stuff like that, and he was basically being groomed by this character named Paulie Cicero, who's played by Paul Sorvino, and also an amazing performance. And he is brought into the attention of a character played by Robert De Niro, who plays Jimmy, and Jimmy's one of those mafiosos who is very well respected but very feared for what he is capable of doing. And as the story runs along, and we see these characters on top of Tommy DeVito, who's played by Joe Pesci, and as this movie moves forward throughout from 1955 to the 1980s, we just see the rise of this group to become the important group in Paulie Cicero's, gang of mafiosos. This movie is so fascinating to watch with just these three characters. Tommy DeVito, Joe Pesci's character, is a hothead. He's a very dangerous individual. He has some of the most memorable moments in here with what do you think? What do you mean I'm funny? That whole situation, of course, with the Ray Liotta character, which is memorable in its own right. It's funny, it's tense, it's disturbing, but it has a very kinetically fun nature to it, as creepy as it is. He ends up killing a boy because the boy says something to him. We have a character named Billy Batts, who's just got out of prison, who's a made man, who pisses him off, and he ends up killing him as well. And Joe Pesci is on a whole nother level. He is the movie's center point, in essence, of how good his character is. When you watch Joe Pesci in this movie, and you watch how much his character is elevated, there's a reason he won the Best Supporting Actor for the role, because he envelops his character. There's something that Joe Pesci did, similar to like Bobcat Goldthwait in a lot of ways, where he had a aura, he had a vision, he had an idea that kind of replicated through a lot of his production of films that he was making, kind of like, Casino and so on and so forth, and Lethal Weapon, where he played the very angry individual. But this level of angry is almost manic, it's almost maniac, where he is very dangerous and he is scary to be around. And of course, the Robert De Niro, he makes the Robert De Niro character, the Jimmy character, look like a puppy dog in a lot of respects. And Jimmy's a very dangerous individual. Everybody in this movie is dangerous, so don't get me wrong. But and he makes, of course, Henry Hill look like his beat around type of kid and stuff like that. So there's a reason Joe Pesci's just fantastic in this movie. You just watch every scene that he's in. He's scary beyond belief, but he is so mesmerizing to watch that when he accepted his award for the best supporting actor, he was up there for like 5 seconds and just kind of said thank you and walked away.
Well, it's my privilege. Thank you.
Because that's who Joe Pesci is. He's a very reserved individual, but to see him on screen, you would never expect that. So this movie, in essence, is showing you Henry Hill's life. Like I said, it's showing you the cadence by cadence by cadence about how he kind of rose himself up in the ranks, which is really fascinating because you see these characters that he is in with, the different mafioso characters, and he seems like the most clean cut, the most like reserved person, but he has a very dark side to him that is really well played out and really just kind of exciting to watch. This is, if it weren't for somebody like Joe Pesci or Robert De Niro in this movie, he would have been an Oscar nominee contender, which he wasn't. So watching him play out in this movie and watching him, portray this character and watching him go through set piece after set piece after set piece and giving his narration about how things work, how, we're so in depth in this movie about how the mafia works and stuff like that because of the Wise Guy's book. It was so well translated to the screen that you're never lost in a single point in this movie, even though it jumps through time so quickly in the 2 hours and 20 minutes that's on screen. But because of, Ray Liotta's performance and how much he's having to give to his character in the general and having to, be a surrogate for the audience, when you see him in the eventual conclusion to this movie, when he's kind of going overboard with the cocaine and stuff like that, and he is being followed by the narcs and narcotics officers and stuff like that, you really get a sense that this character has had a full-fledged, fleshed out storyline. And you don't get that a lot of times. A movie could be 3 to 4 hours long, and you will never get a full fleshed out, character arc. But because of how good Scorsese and Pileggi's script was, you get the rise of this character, a very wet behind the ears, very go-getter type character, to the point where he is officially scared. Joe Pesci's been killed, and now Jimmy is probably going to have, the Henry Hill character whacked because, of course, Henry Hill gets caught. Paul Cicero is like, I have to turn my back on you. And you see the eventual downfall of him eventually ratting out his, what he considered friends to basically be put up in witness protection. And I think that's a really unique and really fascinating storytelling aspect because you see so much of it. I mean, yeah, the movie's long, but you never feel the length of it. You never feel that Henry Hill story ever falls apart or ever feels slow or ever feels not well written. When he eventually meets the Lorraine Bronco character who ends up becoming his wife, you really feel the nature of that relationship. So Henry Hill's character is just so well written that the supporting characters around him almost elevate his character to a new level. It's just funny to see that Joe Pesci's character is so much more of a strength that it really kind of almost overplays the Henry Hill character, but Henry Hill is so well written that it kind of works its own right. So, but when it comes to the Robert De Niro Jimmy character, I think his character is fascinating in the simple fact of he's so reserved in this movie, but he's so menacing. Like, you never feel safe around him. There are points in this movie where, like, for instance, after the cocaine incident, after Henry Hill's been arrested, the Lorraine Bronco Karen Hill character meets Jimmy's character, and she's already under enough fear of being whacked or being killed, however you want to look at it. And Jimmy's like, okay, I'm going to help you out. And he brings her out of the warehouse that he's working in, and he points her down the side of the sidewalk and stuff like that. He's like, in the building there, they'll help you out. And you watch Karen's face as she gets closer and closer and closer to that room, and she sees the two guys in the room, and she realizes what's going to happen. We all kind of are seeing what's happening as the story plays along. And it's so unnerving. This is what Jimmy's character is so good at doing, is unnerving you with his low level of acting, what Robert De Niro is doing, that you know something's fearful in there. And then, of course, when Henry meets him in the cafe and stuff like that, there's a whole sequence when they do the big robbery and they get a lot of money, but then because of the heat that's being put on them from, the feds and stuff like that, they have to keep everything kind of in check. They have to keep the money in safe. Nobody can really buy anything. And all the mafiosos, the ones that end up getting whacked later on in the film, are basically buying these high-end products. And Jimmy is just, he's exasperated, but you never see him get like truly, truly angry. You never see him get to the point where he just like does what Joe Pesci does and just beats the hell out of him or kills him. And that's why Robert De Niro's character, this Jimmy character, is so understated in this movie. He is, out of the three characters, he's the one that's like least representative, but he's like really well written in the movie that you really get a sense of the danger every time you're around him. When they kill Murray, the hair wig guy, he is going to whack him, kill him later on in the night. Henry's trying to figure out the best way possible to not kill him or to not get him killed. And Jimmy's like, oh, I changed my mind. But they end up killing Murray in the end anyways, which shows you the level of menace and contempt that somebody like Jimmy can have if he's just tired of what you're doing. But those three actors, in a nutshell, that's why the movie works as well as it does, is those three characters are representing a new world of mobsters, and the Pauly Cicero character is like an old world style, because you see it at the very beginning of this movie. But that's why I say once again that Martin Scorsese and Nicholas Pileggi's script works so well, because those three characters, like I said, are representing the new wave of mobsters that are showing you the menace and showing you the new form of what mobsters can do. And every time they do something, stealing trucks or something like that, you can really feel the tension behind it. And it all comes to a head when they kill the Billy Bats character, who's played by Frank Vincent, who, in his own right, I can see why Joe Pesci killed him, because he is a complete a-hole in the movie. In his only like few minutes of screen time, he really tries to tear down the Joe Pesci character by, basically belittling him and stuff like that. And he gets his like comeuppance, but because of what they did, how they did it, it causes a rift between the different mob bosses, because, as Henry Hill says in the movie, you have to have permission to kill a made man, which, is pretty understandable in this world of mafiosos. So in the end, Joe Pesci gets killed by killing, but there's a whole it just kind of sparks a very kind of chaotic nature to the eventual like undoing of Joe Pesci's character, how Joe Pesci just starts killing people. Samuel L. Jackson pops up in this movie, and he's just killed off like super quickly, which is really fascinating to see Samuel L. Jackson pop up in these movies, because at the time he's not a huge actor. It wouldn't be till Pulp Fiction that he became a truly A-list actor. But it's at that moment with the Billy Bats character. Yes, Joe Pesci's characters had a lot of tense moments, a lot of outrage moments, but it's at that point when this movie kind of switches into a very chaotic nature, to the sense of when Joe Pesci is killed. But we also have, like I said, I've mentioned before, Lorraine Bronco, who is the fourth or fifth cast member in this movie to have a major part. She plays Karen Hill, and she's kind of the representative of the world that is the almost like simpleton world of this mafioso mobster world, where she sees it from a mother standpoint, she sees it from a wife standpoint, and she sees it from a world where she's not entirely 100% understanding what this world is, but she somehow accepts it, because, as most people do when they get married, if their husband's successful or their wife's successful, they can live a good life. So her husband, even though he's a mobster and steals and kills and thieves and stuff like that, she's living a good life. She's getting money. She loves her husband, and her kind of downfall in the situation is the cocaine incident. And just to see how angry her husband gets, because, like I said, Henry Hill is very reserved for the most part, but he has an angry streak, and it really shows with her character. It represents a woman who is going through a world that she is not used to, but her mannerisms, her New York accent, her ability to just portray a very strong woman who does a lot of deep, dark stuff in a lot of ways, with her husband and stuff like that. It's just really fun to see her character play out. And she is really the only main woman in this movie. Irene Douglas does pop up in this, or Ilena Douglas pops up in this movie, and she's not in it for very much, but as a perspective of the world that is not the thievery and the murder or stuff like that, she represents a good kind of in point to what this world represents. So Lorraine Bracco, I think, got an Oscar nomination for this movie, and it's very well deserved. And I like her character in this movie. I think she does a fantastic job. So, but pushing the characters out of the way, as we've finished talking about them, the story, the world that's presented is what Martin Scorsese is really known for his strengths of doing. If you've watched any movie from Martin Scorsese, he knows how to shoot a movie. He knows how to represent the characters on the screen. He knows what set pieces he wants. He knows the vision and ideas and how he wants to push forward. And he knows how to get a realistic nature of this world. This world is not something you want to live in unless you have the ability or want the ability to eventually be killed. And just watching how these incidents play out in this movie between the robberies and, the eventual murders of these characters that happen in this movie, to the look and feel of the cars, the costumes, the world around, just the different set pieces and stuff like that. Martin Scorsese has created a world in Goodfellas, like I said, with Nick Pileggi, that is just something truly special. It's when you go back to like stuff like King of Comedy or Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, he knows how to represent the feel of the movie and the era that this movie is being represented in. You really feel like you're in 1955 with the Copacabana, with the different bars that are being represented, with the chairs and stuff like that. But when it comes to a very realized, dirty, gritty world that is a mob world, I think, Martin Scorsese does it like no other. And the only thing I have a gripe with at all is he said he wanted to go for realism when it came to like murder and stuff like that, the very cold, calculated situation. I do think there are movies out there that have portrayed the idea of murder a lot more realistic. So I don't know if Scorsese did that to kind of for the censors or something like that, but when he says he's doing it for like cold, calculated stuff, I see that in the perspective. You definitely see that in Casino, but when they're like shooting people and stuff like that, it's very visceral and very violent. It's just not 100% realistic, which is, I guess, not necessarily a bad thing, because seeing realistic can be a little disturbing, a little PTSD type of scenario. But it just, the correction in that thing always kind of bothered me a little bit. And when you see him get shot, especially in Casino, when they're like shooting Joe Pesci, you don't really see anything. You just see him shooting like the gun, and you see the muzzle flash, but you don't really see it hit the body itself. So that's always been an interesting kind of tact on Martin Scorsese and what he's trying to do. But I understand why he did it, if he did it for a particular reason. So, and I'd be remiss not to talk about the one shot that's in this movie. It's fascinating to think about or hear about the Copacabana and the building that they shot at, because they actually shot at the Copacabana, that they were not wanting them to shoot into the Copacabana itself. So they had to go through the back way, the long way, which made for a couple of logistical issues, because when you have certain shots you want a certain way, when you have to find a way around it, it's kind of ingenious what they did. The one shot or the steady cam shot is nothing new. It's been around since like the 70s or whatever it is. But it is so insanely well done to put a one shot together. And Alfonso Cuarón is very well known for doing this. And, Inarritu is known for doing this, and so on and so forth. The Player is one of the greatest one shots ever made. Snake Eyes, so on and so forth. The one shot in this movie is like 7 or 8 minutes long. Maybe not that long. It's not too long, but they go from outside into the lower bowels of the Copacabana, through the different kitchens and stuff like that, through the coat rooms, through everything to the eventual main room of the Copacabana. And to watch a scene play out like that, to watch the logistics of how you have to do it, to watch Martin Scorsese talk about it, it's like you think that that they had practiced this, or this is a very easy thing to do, and it's not. I mean, you're watching basically action take place as soon as you walk into the room. Action's already happening. I'm sure they had a production assistant or somebody that was there to go cue, because they were hearing it on the radio and stuff like that. But to watch it play out so smoothly and so successfully, to feel so simple, ingenious, and so seamless, it's just, to watch him, like I said, go from outside into the eventual inside of Copacabana, it's fascinating. I can't imagine having to set that scene up. It really is. It really can't. But it's a fascinating scene. It's one of the great scenes in modern film history. And there's a reason that it just shows you how good these people are when it comes to directing. I've watched the scenes from like Children of Men all the time, or Snake Eyes, and it's just, it boggles your mind how inventive these people can get, because they say the world of creativity is just how limited your mind is, and the person that decided to come up with a one shot, I give him credit, so it's pretty insane. But so I just have to give credit to people like Thelma Shoemaker or Michael Ballas, who does the cinematographer, or Erwin Winkler, who's worked on all these people have worked with Martin Scorsese on many films. Martin Scorsese is a fantastic director, one of the greatest directors ever made. But these people who are consistently, it's like Spielberg with Janusz Kaminski, John Williams, so on and so forth. These people really truly know what Martin Scorsese wants and what he wants to represent on screen, and it really shows. It really does in this world. So it really kind of still bothers me that this movie didn't win Best Picture. I know Dances with Wolves and Kevin Costner was really huge at the time, and it was a remarkable achievement. I've seen Dances with Wolves. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's boring. I probably get a lot of hate for that, but when you see this movie, you see what Martin Scorsese did with Nicholas Pileggi's book, having him and Nicholas Pileggi work on this book, having the world that they represent so well realized, having this movie become so iconic with every shot. At the very end of this movie, there's a iconic scene with Joe Pesci shooting the gun at the screen, which is basically a representation of the Great Train Robbery. It's a movie that just forever time will be considered one of the greatest ever made, one of the greatest crime dramas ever made, and a movie full of characters that, as despicable as they are some of the greatest ever written on screen. They really are. So once again, I'm glad Joe Pesci won the supporting Oscar, because if he hadn't, it would have been pretty bad. But we have a movie that I think will truly go down as one of the greatest movies ever made. So there you go. That is everything I can think about talking about with Goodfellas. Like I said, there's a lot of great scenes in the movie, so I'm toning it down from what I could talk about this movie for 3 hours, just the different scenes. But I want to try and keep this as short as possible for a review. So, but yeah, that is my take on Goodfellas. Definitely a highly recommended film if you haven't seen it, which I'm surprised if you haven't. But thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this movie. I'm sure a lot of people like this movie. Let me know your favorite scene, favorite character, all that good stuff. Otherwise, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium if you enjoy my channel. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. Hey, you know what? If you like these videos, as always, cool. Hit that like button. If you dislike it, hey, it is what it is. But otherwise, I will see you guys on the next video. Peace out.